always say that, education and in research is always key. If there's something you want to learn more of or get on is double down your efforts on the understanding of what it is you're trying to do. I always say that's the best way. Sometimes, information, the right information can be a game changer, and it's out there, right? And it's about locating it. It's about getting it into your hands and into your mind to use outwardly. And that's, that could be a mentor, that could be a business strategy coach, that could be, anybody, a book. And it's just about getting it and then applying it. So, get the knowledge and then apply what you're learning into your business, right?
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. Now, today we have another great expert episode today where we get to talk a lot about a lot of things, and it'll be with Kawan Karadaghi, if I can say the name at least as close as I can to being correct. But some of the things we'll talk about is, the strategy of business and how you do competitive and in industry analysis and strategic planning and implementation, and how to get into making a mark and business culture, and how to build a team, people process and systems, positioning your business and setting yourself apart, how to expand your business via acquisition, and then exit, or looking at exit strategies for acquisition, and maybe a little bit of finding your place with other business partners. A lot of good things that we'll hopefully have a bit of time to chat about. And with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Quan.
Evan, thanks for having me on, man. There's a lot of topics I gave you there. Hopefully we'll be able to do them all justice. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Always plenty of fun things to talk about. So before we dive into the topic and the expertise at hand, maybe just for those of you that haven't heard the original episode, definitely make sure to go back and listen to a little bit of Kwan's journey and his Inventive Journey episode that's a little while back. And then, but for those that either haven't caught up on those episodes or unwilling to go back and listen, which I definitely invite them to do, give it just a quick introduction as to who you are and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks, man. I started off in fitness as a personal trainer. In the original podcast, we kind of talked about the journey before that, which was a lot of, kind of finding my way. And then going into, personal training was sort of the way that I found what I wanted to do. And I enjoyed the, passion and purpose, if you will, married together there. So from fitness, got into, management, stuck with fitness there, and then met business partners. And we kind of opened, we did open a few gyms and went on to the business owner route. So, personal trainer or gym rat, if you will, personal trainer, fitness manager, and then business owner. So, it was the learning of both of them, which was the fitness and business side, that kind of led me to where I am today.
No, definitely makes sense. And so now with that much as a bit of an introduction and kind of as a background, jumping into the topic at hand, one of the things that we'd talked a lot about or before the episode was on, doing a competitive and industry analysis. So talk a little bit about first of all, what that means. I mean, I think people in general get, hey, I should probably understand what's going on in the industry, or, what my competitors are doing, but why does it matter? What does it make sense? And what does it involve?
It's a great question. We were looking at, just to give you an idea, of finding our first gym took us about 150 locations, right, to scout and look for. And we always, you have a franchise team backing you with Anytime Fitness. So we would look for the demographics of, obviously, as an industry, is there demand for your product, right? Can you make it in this industry? And is it viable? Do you have a viable competitive position with your competition, right? So for us, it was big box gyms. So, any type of studios, boutiques, and things like that. So analyzing kind of the landscape of what you're trying to get into and what your positioning and offer is, right? For us, it was looking at demographics, right? So population per 1 mile, a median income, and then looking for, competition nearby. How far how close was competition, and what were they doing right, what were they not doing so well, and where did we fit in between, where we could have, snagged some of the market share in between that. And that's kind of what you want to find, where it aligns your product with the demand of today. So it's really just analyzing the industry, your competitors, what they do, and just being real honest about it and saying, is this product viable? So with the brand, we had brand recognition, we had support, versus a mom and pop gym where you kind of don't have that. So you have a little more work cut out for you. And that's kind of the scope of the analysis portion there. And
So
obviously
a couple questions. So, because first of all, 152 locations is quite a few locations. And so what was it that, so you go through 152 and had a few questions on it. What was the one that out of when you finally got to the 152nd or 153rd, the one that you finally decided on, what were the criteria, or what did you look at, and what set it apart from the 151 or 152 other locations that weren't right for you?
It's a great question. We look for, you want enough parking, right? So no one wants to go to the gym and not have parking, right? You don't want to drive around and do that. So no, that was number one. Number two, size of the location, right? So is it like in a good visibility? Does it have the good anchors next to it, like anchor shops, such as like, a big supermarket where you'll get a lot of foot traffic, right? And number three and four would be, the area in itself. Is it easily accessible? Is it like what we like to call a home run gym? Is it a lot of cars driving by? Is there a lot of, again, visibility? And, the way that you build out, right? Because construction is important. So how much would that cost? Because these constructions or these build outs, can get closer to the $1 million mark as you start to build interior gyms. And you don't want to go too much into debt trying to build your dream gym. And because we've seen that happen with other owners as well. And you end up being tied to that loan and to that rent. So the rent model was also important in that analysis, saying, okay, how many members do we need to break even? And is this viable? And is it sustainable? And can we do it?
Now, a couple of follow-up questions to that. So once you do that, what period of time were you doing this through? In other words, when you're doing a competitor analysis, looking at all these locations, was it a matter of a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or how long did you take as you were finding that perfect location?
As far as the gyms are concerned, when we got into it, we knew that they were already there. And coming from big box gyms, all of us, we worked for, corporate gyms, and the capabilities of the competitors was kind of just already the writing on the wall. We knew they have $1 million marketing spends, and outreach, and just more capabilities and resources at their disposal, right? So with that knowledge, we knew right away that that's what we were up against. So we knew the gyms. So the competitor analysis we already knew what they were already doing, right? So the only thing that was going to differentiate us was, as a small business, was to bootstrap more, guerrilla style more, and do the things that large corporations took longer to do, right? So innovate and just band together and just be more adaptable and flexible in the process. So that's what helped us. And then, when we really got down, we said, okay, what ads or promotions are they running? What's their price point? What training things do they offer that we can kind of take and reformulate or repurpose? So, using existing models and finding, what the problem is with that model and how can we improve upon it, right? Can we do no contracts? Can we do lower monthly payments? So that flexibility is key in the small business
Now,
realm.
one kind of follow-up question to all that, because it sounds like you guys looked at a ton of locations, did a ton of research, really understood both the market as far as what you guys should be looking at independent of competition, as far as location and geography, as well as with competition, how that all factors in. Now, how did you go about getting all that information? In other words, it sounded like, you looked at locations, you looked at average income, you looked at demographics, you looked at, what is their surrounding, what are competitors doing, which is great. And it's a lot of data, but how did you even go about finding out that you hired a third-party firm and they did it all for you? You bootstrapped and did it yourself. You went and knocked doors and asked people, hey, how much money do you make? Or how did you kind of go about figuring a lot of that information out to make the best decision you could?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So, in the beginning there, the beauty of a franchise, I like franchises, is because of the support network they give you, right? So you get a real estate team, and that real estate team, maps out everything and how it's looking, and if it matches these key metrics that they kind of go after, which is the parking, the median income, these type of areas, right, where you want to come into. And so we had a lot of that done for us. And then, any landlord, anybody that's kind of you go out to show interest in, will provide you a demographics report. And then we also did an independent analysis where we kind of just drove around the area, right? So you just get out and get on the ground there, drive around and get a feel for it, see what's happening in the area and get eyes out there. So when we did that, we used independent analysis. Combined was like a SWOT, which was a strength, weakness, opportunity, threat assessment. And we used the 5 forces analysis, which was, threat of entry, threat of rivalry, threat of substitutes, and, I'm blanking on the other 2 there, but I'll have to circle back around. But basically, just analyzes each one. A substitute would be something like yoga, right? So we knew there was yoga studios around, but they wouldn't really replace a gym, but they could take market share because they offered yoga, which is a form of exercise, as a substitute to the gym. So we just looked at all the angles there and try to, make sure that we had that positioning, even though those were present.
No, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like both, you had a great team behind you, had a lot of experience, and it made it, a better process as far as figuring that out. So now, as you kind of said, okay, we've got a better idea of the industry, what promotions are we offering, what price points, how can we do something different, how can we do something better, find that perfect location, go through all of that analysis. And then, kind of the next thing we talked about was almost strategic planning and implementation. In other words, how do you take all of that data and start to formulate the plan? And how do, and as a even a broader question, how do other businesses do that? So if they go out, they do all that competitive analysis, they get all the data they have as best, never going to be a perfect data set, you're never going to have all the information, but as much as you can reasonably gather, how did you then take all of that and formulate your strategy?
It's a great question. When we met in the beginning, there was, it's still 3 of us, and we would kind of meet on a weekly basis, daily basis, and sort of talk about where we were headed, right? So always forward thinking, always trying to innovate and figure out what the next step is, right? So, what can we do better? What can we do different? So a lot of, believe it or not, over 90% of strategy doesn't get implemented properly, right? So we knew, the way that we wanted to formulate it was to say, okay, not to get stuck in the analysis paralysis phase, right? So you're never going to have enough data, you're never going to have enough information. But we knew, okay, if we met and this was a viable thing that we could try, and if it didn't work out, we were able to pull out of it. So we did what's called like a real options analysis, right? So we said, okay, let's get this thing going, and we'll invest this much, a little bit, a small amount. And if it works, great. If not, we bail, right? And it allowed us to, what's called a rapid, rapid failure, right? Or rapid growth. We try to immediately come out with a, minimum viable product, get it going, see if it works. If it doesn't, retreat, come back, reformulate, and try again. So we just met, and it ensued a lot of disagreements, arguments, and but the beauty of it was, in comparison to large organizations, as small business owners, you don't have a lot of obstacles to cross. It's just you and whoever you're involved with, whether it's yourself and your business partner. So we just quickly got to solutions and figured out if it made sense for the customer, the member, and we were able to still profit, then this was something that would be viable.
So now you take that. So now how do you extrapolate that for other businesses, right? In other words, how do they gather that data, work for our planning and implementation, because to some degree every industry is different, yet a lot of the tools in that are the same. So kind of having gone through that and figured that out and gone through and taken what sounds like a pretty in-depth process, what are some of the takeaways, or what are some of the things that people should be looking at or working to implement as they're looking to say, hey, is this a good idea, and how do we implement it, and what should we be considering? Any thoughts or takeaways?
Yeah, it's a great question there. So the most important thing is to remember your product, right, or what your offer is, and the is it in line with the mission, values, peoples, and process, your capabilities as an organization? Is this something that you're staying true to, right, to yourself and to your company, and to not get stuck in the research phase too long, right? The most important thing to do is what they call the critical step to success, which is, taking action on the strategy you do choose, and, starting off with, not too much of a risk overhead, and seeing if the demand is out there. So I always like to test demand first, right? Is the demand there? And can we fill the need with the demand? So I think that's important before you start anything, is to, do like some surveying and some research into, pay the cost of somebody to do that analysis for you, and give you the data and say, okay, I have this now. The demand is there. People do want, for example, team or group training. We have it now. Let's launch this, instead of, coming up with the idea and then sort of blindly going at it that way. So, don't get stuck in the research phase. Implement, low overhead strategies, and then reformulate if need be.
No, I think that definitely, because what you typically you have two sides of the extreme, right? One side of the extreme is, hey, we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants. We're not going to do any data or analysis. We have a gut feeling. We know this is right, and gut feelings are great, and you should, that you can always factor that in, but you should have something to back it up and make the decision, so that you're not purely just going off your gut. And by the other token, you can also say, hey, we're going to research this out, and you're always continually researching and ever implementing and ever doing. And so all that research doesn't actually or implement or come into fruition with any action, and it doesn't do you any good either. So there is that balancing effect of, you have to say, hey, we're going to gather as much reasonable data as needs be to make this decision. It's not going to be perfect, and then we're going to move forward nonetheless in order to continue to try things out and continue to improve it. So now we'll shift gears just a little bit, because one of the other things we talked about is that you guys have done is, look to build, or as you build the business, to build a culture and also to build a team. And that kind of is two parts. One is, you have business partners, and you're trying to find your position within the business partners, and where you're at with the company and how you delegate. And then you're also bringing new people on that are employees and aren't going to be partners, but you're wanting to further that culture to the employees as you bring them on. So kind of, how did you go about, both within your business partners and then as a company grows, to keep that culture?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. The being it that the business is, essentially comprised of what, people, processes, and systems, right? Are the people that you're hiring in line with the overall messaging or organizational direction of, if you will, where we're headed, right? Do they love fitness? Do they like working out? Do they have a story? Do they want to help people? And are they people persons, or people's people, right? And that's, we look for that, right? So, are they easy to get along with and talk to? Are they reasonable? They process things well? And we kind of just went for the ones that just kind of were easy. Best way for me to say, is it easy to get along with? Was it easy to communicate, and did we share the same ideas and values there? So I think the value alignment's key, which is, for us, it's growth, initiative, right? And, there's a lot of freedom involved in it too. Everybody has kind of their own schedule, and we don't mandate things on them, and we allow them to come from that place of, responsibility. So, freedom and responsibility within the framework is what we always try to say there, and having them have that autonomy. So once those things kind of click, you just kind of, it's hard to describe, but you kind of just get a good feeling about it. You're like, this person, it's easy. We get along. It's cool. The interview is a big thing there. So a lot of it has to do with just that gym culture, which is just a sense of camaraderie and coming together. And some people come there for therapy, and they talk, and you hear stories in there. And I think it's just fitting in with that population.
No, I think that definitely makes sense, and finding those people, you're always looking for someone that you can get along with. You're going to be working with them for a long period of time, and you're a lot of times, as said, it's every bit as much as a marriage, in the sense you're going to be seeing them sometimes a lot more than you do your spouse or your kids, especially when you're getting a business up and going, and that's a lot of your likelihood. And yet you spend a whole lot more time dating and courting and figuring out who you're going to marry than a lot of times who you bring on as a partner or who you bring on as going to be a long-term
Yeah.
associate. Now, one question I'll ask is, and I'd say most business owners learn this and they have to some degree, figure it out the hard way. Is there anybody that you brought on, you don't need to get into names or details, that, as much as as you feel or don't feel comfortable, but that weren't good hires or weren't a good fit from the culture? And then what did you learn about the hiring process as far as finding that fit or finding what
Yeah.
didn't fit?
Yeah, definitely. Some of our in our Northern California, we looked at, we did have that obviously, and dealing with 15 to 20 employees was a challenge in that. So we learned a lot in hiring basically as quickly as we could to develop them and onboard them, right? So and learning in that phase, okay, not just hiring out of convenience, right? Not just hiring because we are, not, we don't have a big pool of talent. Let's just go for it, and we will figure it out, and hopefully they'll work out. You never want to get to that point where you're kind of set. I don't want to say settling, but in lack of better words, settling for just because you have a fear that you may not get another person just to quickly hire. So taking your time, right? So we learned that if we weren't stoked or excited about the person coming on, we just say, what, this probably isn't a good fit. It's not easy. It doesn't sound like it's going to be easy. So let's move on. The onboarding phase is critical. Having that employee or team member feel like they belong as part of the organization, and having them to showing them of the process of it, and having them feel connection right away was huge as far as like retaining them. Constant development, always investing in their growth, whether it be through business books, seminars, and training on site, was to always invest in their education to make sure that they're learning and growing consistently. And that was kind of the things we learned there. And documentation obviously is huge. You have to document and talk about everything, and doing everything kind of by the book on that end. So, we learned a lot in that way of organizational stuff, structure, and getting things on paper. So, you just learn a lot with a kind of trial by fire, so to speak. And thankfully, we didn't have any negative experiences. And but we learned a lot with every hire. And when hires leave, we ask ourselves, what happened here? And what went wrong? Why did this person not stay or not stick around? And it's
Now I'm
called,
going to ask the follow-up
yeah.
question, which is, what were some of the things that did go wrong or caused them to leave or caused you to let someone go?
It was, missing the things that sort of they give you clues on. So they say, hey, I, don't know this thing here. I don't know X, or I'm not available during these times. And, the lack of communication on our end was, trying to make them into what we wanted them to be, rather than having them fall into their own natural strengths, right? So the hiring process is so critical that we said, okay, from now on, we got to make sure we have alignment before we move on and hire them. So lapses in communication, not kind of hiring out of convenience and then trying to take them to where you want them to be, rather than them already being there with their capabilities and what they're capable of. So, trying to make someone be something that they aren't passionate about being, right? So that you want that already there, and you want them to be proactive to bring that to the team.
No, and I think that that definitely makes sense. And one of the things you hit on earlier is, I think one of the things that I probably found out earlier on that that I did was doing wrong was on the idea of wanting to hire someone too quickly, because a lot of times you get, first of all, I think you get into it and you think, oh, everybody's going to work as hard as I am, and everybody's going to be as dedicated, and everybody's going to be excited and for the opportunity, and then you hire someone, you're like, well, they're not quite as excited as I am. And nothing against them, because they don't have the same, hey, they're not the founder, they're not the co-founder, they're not an owner, and so they're there for different motivations and different reasons, and the things that get you excited about the business probably don't resonate with them. But then even getting into, oh, everybody's going to work as hard as I am, and they're going to do a good job, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I think that too often you get into, hey, I'm just going to hire someone quickly because we need someone to fill a seat and we're overwhelmed and we can't keep up with things. And those are the times I think that you tend to make the worst hires, is when you're rushing the process, you're not slowing it down, you're looking for someone, you're settling, or you're taking what is available. And sometimes that works out great, you get lucky, and a lot of times you're saying, hey, we should have slowed this down in the beginning because we knew that it wasn't going to work out, but we're kind of overlooking things because we're in a crunch or in a bind.
Right. And to touch up on that too, I think you brought some good points, is the leadership and management components, right? I think in the beginning phase, it's easy as small business owners to, like you said, they're going to work as hard as me and just kind of assume. So I think showing them that leadership side, which is some of the softer skills, right? Getting to know them and befriending them is always helpful. Getting to know your team, hanging out with them, doing stuff together. So we do activities all the time and parties and stuff like that to reward, some of the great things that they've done, because we just wouldn't be anywhere without, just team members and solid team members. So the leadership component and getting to know your team members, and the management side is coming in and coaching when you need to make sure things are getting done the right way. My favorite quotes is, leadership is, doing the right things, and management is doing things right. And it's making sure that that you verify the things that they do, and teaching them and coaching them when they're not doing it right, so that things don't fall through the cracks, and expectations get met, and then you don't have lapses in communication and loss of trust, which leads to negative outcomes. So you just got to kind of, I want to say, be there with them throughout the process, and then slowly letting them go, like getting the training wheels off and letting them handle the bike on their own there, if you will.
No, I definitely agree. So, well, as we're starting to wrap up, and there's, we had a lot of things we could have talked about. We hit through a lot of them, and always more things I'd love to chat about that we never quite have time. But as we start to wrap up the podcast, I always have one question at the end of each expert episode. So we'll go ahead and jump to that now, which is, we talked about a lot of things, everything from doing competitive analysis and industry analysis to slowing down the process, to building the right team, to doing, implementation or planning and implementation, to building the culture, all those various things. And there's a lot of great takeaways, a lot of things that you could get started on. And most of the time you're saying, well, there's a lot of things I could do, but I can't do them all today. So if there's just one thing, something that if you were talking to a startup or a small business owner that was just getting started or looking to grow, what would be that one takeaway or the one thing they should get started on?
I always say that education and in research is always key. If there's something you want to learn more of, or get on, is double down your efforts on the understanding of what it is you're trying to do. I always say that's the best way. Sometimes information, the right information can be a game changer, and it's out there, right? And it's about locating it. It's about getting it into your hands and into your mind to use outwardly. And that's, that could be a mentor, that could be a business strategy coach, that could be anybody, a book, and it's just about getting it and then applying it. So get the knowledge and then apply what you're learning into your business, right? And then start small by reducing risk there. And I think that's the most important step, is business owners kind of have to be just voracious learners in today's society, today's world and society as well, is constantly learning, constantly improving your skill set. To stay relevant, I would say that the number one recommendation is don't stay complacent. Always get new information, improve, and apply what you learn.
No, and I think that's a great takeaway. I mean, one of the things that I think that you oftentimes get bogged down with is when you're busy, especially with the startup, is there's a lot of things that are just not mundane, but have to get done. There are a lot of tasks. And so you stop learning or you stop growing because you're focusing on getting everything done, which I get it. You have to get everything done. But when you stop learning, once you stop growing, once you stop seeing what the industry is doing and how you can improve and getting feedback and learning and those type of things, then you start to or digress because you're not keeping ahead of what others are doing and you're not keeping on the forefront. And so, one of the things, my takeaway, or kind of the thing I'd add on to that is one of the things I always do is I always go for a run in the morning. I run about 9 miles each morning, and I'll listen to a podcast or I'll listen to a book on tape. And I usually it's not just a interesting or fictional podcast, but it's always on something business related. And half the time when I come into the team, it's, hey, I was listening to this book or this podcast, and then it took for a while. It took me to figure out. I stepped back and I'm like, the podcast or the book really didn't have much related to what my thought was, but it spawned that idea, it spurred that idea to, hey, here's something that we could try out or think about. It's kind of that continual learning, and sometimes it's you learn something, and other times it's just a genesis for an idea. And so I think always having that learning mentality and continuing to grow and continuing to analyze is a great thing to keep ahead of the business. So. Well, as people want to reach out to, if they want to find out more, they want to be a franchisee, they want to be a customer, they want a client, they want to be coming into your gym, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Oh yeah, thanks, man. It's my website is KAWANKARADAGHI, which is my first and last name, Karadaghi.com. And if people are interested, they can sign up to I'm coming out with a book, so it's about fitness, and you can find it on the website where they can come, and it'll be called the 10 laws, or the 10 undisputed laws of fitness success. So it's more based on the workout side, but that's kind of what we're doing, what I'm doing there. And come check me on the website, drop me a line, shoot me an email. And that's, I'll be happy to respond on my own there.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage people to check it out, and look forward to the book going out and going live so that we can read that as well and continue to learn about fitness. So, well, thank you again, Kawan, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell or your own expertise to share, we'd love to have you on the podcast. Feel free to go to inventiveguests.com and apply to be on the show. Make sure to, as a listener, to subscribe and share as well, so that everybody can find out about all of our awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else with your business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Thanks again, Kawan, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin.